What is up, guys? Well, it's Devil's Night, which means that our spooky season of October has almost reached its end, except for those of us that are crazy and just celebrate that shit all year long, am I right? And this video is going to be a really fun one. And this is me collaborating with Brennan, who runs a podcast and a YouTube channel called Storybreakers. The link will be in the video description below. And essentially the concept is that he invites these guests onto his podcast and his YouTube channel to literally come up with a movie plot on the spot, off the cuff, in real time. He chooses a theme or a franchise to play within, and then you and Chris just go back and forth for however long it takes to come up with a beginning, middle, and end, full plot points, characters, all that good stuff for a movie idea. And given that it's October spooky season, of course, we're talking about the Halloween franchise. So what we're essentially going to be doing in this is that me and Chris are going to be making our ideal Halloween sequel. Now, he does kind of throw it to me to give the initial jump off point on what direction we're going to be heading. And for somebody who's extremely burnt out on the Halloween franchise, the one idea that I would be very curious to see is the one that I brought up to Chris. So over the next hour and a half, you're going to see a lot of really cool back and forth, some interesting ideas. Let me know your guys' ideas down below for your own Halloween sequel. And of course, let us know what you think about our pitch for a Halloween sequel. Is this something that you'd be excited for, that you'd buy a movie ticket for, or would you be waiting for them to reset the timeline for the 600th time that they're watching our film? So, nonetheless, let's kick this thing off and welcome to Storybreakers.
Welcome to Storybreakers, the show where we come up with a brand new film idea off the top of our heads. My name is Brennan, and today we're going to be breaking story on what we believe the next chapter of the Halloween franchise should be. This is an ongoing series that I'm touring across different YouTube channels. So for today, my guest is YouTuber and horror aficionado Cody Leach, as we try to figure out what the next chapter of Michael Myers' story should be. Halloween ended with Halloween Ends, but we know that that's not permanent. Whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now, there's going to be another installment. But what exactly is that going to look like? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out. If you enjoy this, then I definitely recommend you check out my channel Storybreakers, where I have a Halloween franchise playlist with episodes from other YouTubers, writers, and horror aficionados giving their own take on where they believe the franchise should go. And again, it's all off the top and on the spot. With that being said, Cody, welcome to the show.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good, yeah, thank you. In fact, I only came up with this idea for the series about a month and a half ago because I only for the first time watched Halloween 5 and 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Up until then, I saw the rest, and I was understanding of all the different timelines
and all that.
Timelines, yeah. But when I saw those two, I was like, oh my God, my head is broken now. But that gave me the idea. But also, it was watching your timeline breakdown. I think you were doing a tier list or a ranking. I was like, what should the next one be? Because Halloween Ends is quite definitive. But we know for a fact that it's not going to end there. In a year, maybe 5 years, they're going to do something else. But after watching 5 and 6, I was like, okay, what could that be? Which brings us to today, where we're going to break story off the top of our heads on what we actually think the next installment could or should be. That sound good?
Yeah, sounds great, man.
So it ended with Halloween Ends. But what do we do next? Is it a full reboot? Is it a sequel? Is it a continuation from Halloween Ends? Or is it a prequel of some kind? Or do we take a stab at going into a series? What are you feeling for this session of Halloween's next installment?
Oh, man. Okay, so if I'm the one signing the checks and I'm the one making the decisions, to me, the most interesting thing that you could do that we have not really done yet is to go back and do a direct sequel to the original that's just the rest of that night. So kind of like redoing Halloween 2. Kind of like that segment that we got in the opening of Halloween Kills, where it's showing like what happened after he got up off the ground and he went around the neighborhood, and then Loomis and everybody caught him, and then he ends up going to the prison that we find him 40 years later in Halloween 2018. I think that would be the coolest thing to do, is just continue off of that night after, Laurie Strode has her interaction with him and Loomis shoots him and he falls over the balcony, and have like a period piece set in the 70s. I think that would be really cool.
That's amazing. I love that idea. Okay, let's break story on this. So when you've already identified that it's going to be in the time frame, so 1978, it's a direct continuation. Are we seeing it as like minutes later or like an hour later that night?
Probably later that night, I would think, but like, either that or a year later or something like that, but something to keep it to where you want to have Halloween be the holiday, of course. So,
Yes.
I guess that would be the end of Halloween night. I don't know how long you could stretch past that. I mean, it's like, what, 1 a.m. at that point by the end of the first film, something. So to me, the reason why I would want that is I've always been frustrated with how beholden this franchise is to Laurie Strode.
Right.
Love Jamie Lee Curtis. But, especially with this most recent trilogy, it's like, okay, we can put her to rest. We don't need to do another Laurie versus Michael movie. I've always thought one of the best things about the original is the fact that Michael has no motive. And he doesn't have that sibling angle that was added in the second film that I've never been crazy about. And, Jamie Lee Curtis and Laurie Strode, why is he chasing her? Well, she's just the one that he saw, And so if it gets to the point where she's just too much of a pain in the ass, then he'll just move on to somebody else. And so I think it would be interesting to maybe have the film show in the cold open, like what exactly happened to Michael after he got up off of that grass, and then maybe do a time jump where he comes back to Haddonfield, or I don't know if it would make sense for the branding of it to just have him continue his reign on November 1st.
Interesting. I really like this idea. So no Laurie Strode, that does make sense. And yeah, it's funny because most of the sequels just went off Halloween 2. So they all gave motive to the motiveless killer of the first one. That even the creators like, look, I don't know. Like, I was forced to come up with something. That's what I came up with. I'm not too happy with it. But everything until 2018 was about that. So interesting. So I guess what we have to figure out first, we'll figure out who the next protagonist is, but I'm curious of, is it that night or is it a year later? I'm actually interested in what you said about kind of the cold open of like that evening, but granted that night stretched on long enough. And there's one thing I love about Halloween films is having trick-or-treating occurring. So we're losing that completely if we're going a continuation of the night. Because I don't know what kid is out there at 3 a.m. Like, they got a sweet tooth for sure if they're still not satisfied.
Don't care at all. What I think would be cool about that too is like I think that you haven't never really explored the supernatural angle to Michael the way that they really kind of had subtly in there in the first film. Like, he's always kind of been more humanized aside from just being unable to be killed. And so I think it would be almost cool enough to just not even really bother with explaining why he disappears for a year and then comes back whenever the Halloween holiday is back again. Like, you could have it where, similar to the 2018 film or to the the new trilogy, where the legend of Michael Myers, like that's very much omnipresent in this town. You could have that same thing, but it doesn't have to be 40 years later. This guy went on this killing spree and then disappeared without a trace a year ago. And then the kids and the parents are nervous to go out on Halloween night again, and then they decide to, and all of a sudden the killings start again.
Yeah, and even then, it is reasonable on both sides for the community to say, like, well, look, it happened one night, a few people were killed, tragic, but, like, he's gone, like, that's it, So, and then the other side, you have the community saying, like, but what if,
Yeah.
And that's the legacy beginning, because he did something when he was a child. Cut to 1978, he comes back, and now there's these murmurs and gossip and rumors about if he might show up a year later. And funny enough, he does.
Yeah. And it's not quite as far-fetched as having 40 years later the town still be crippled by a couple of random teenagers dying. It's like, oh, this was just a year ago.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. That's true. So in this cold opening, how much do you want to see of him that night? Do you want to see him actually getting up, or just kind of begin with the empty spot and then cut to him like shuffling off? Or
I don't even know if you really need to show him. Like, I'm trying to envision like a really quick stylistic cold open where you open with the ending of the first film, similar to how Halloween 2 opened. You show Michael come off the balcony and hit the ground, and then you have the same shot of, using footage from the first film of Loomis looking over and seeing just the imprint, and then that music starts and you hear the breathing and you see the shots throughout the house while Laurie Strode's distraught. And you could just have shots of like the police arriving and, have a shot of Loomis helping her. Like, it would all probably be from behind using body doubles and stuff like that. They did a pretty good job with whoever was supposed to be Donald Pleasance in Halloween Kills, so they can get away with it. Having something where it's just showing like little bits of the aftermath of this night, Laurie Strode going off to the hospital or whatever, but then continuing to show like pieces of Haddonfield like reacting to this event while hearing Michael's breathing.
Yeah, I could even see it being really nice if it was just like empty streets, like dead quiet, his breathing, and it kind of is alluding to like you're following his path as he got away, but you never see him. Yeah, which is actually quite nice.
Have that audio like almost be pulsating, like his breath, like a metronome. And then showing all of this, and then like having the leaves and the darkness of the night going through the neighborhood or whatever, and then kind of fade the sound out, and then you can just say 1979.
I love it. And then that kicks it off 1 year later. Or I guess it would be leading up to Halloween, right? Yeah. We want to give it a couple days, because I think what's interesting about this is the community's caution for what's about to come up, Yep. And again, as I say, like, there's reasonability on both sides, that it's like, look, why can't the kids go out? We'll go with them, And exactly. So maybe it's more of a parent-led trick-or-treating initiative that happens in the town.
And you can introduce us to a group of teenagers that are, walking to school on the 30th or something like that, or on the 31st, and they pass the Strode house that's been sold because the Strodes got the hell out of Dodge and nobody's bought the house since because of the murders, and start to establish that we're not going to be following a Laurie Strode storyline, but that story of Michael Myers, that the guy that escaped or whatever, is now just that town's burden. And kind of reestablish, okay, it's a year later, it's about to be Halloween again, and kids, especially if they're teenagers, they're going to be like teasing about it, like, oh, the boogeyman's coming.
I agree. Do we have Loomis back, or like recast Loomis, or get somebody to
that's the tricky part,
perform as him? I imagine it'd be tough if he's bounced too after this, and I really have no problem when you recast people like that. I don't see why it's a big deal. I think any actor who's similar in build and type and character, why not? Like, it's fine.
I would lean towards recasting him, because I always felt like there was more untapped potential in the Loomis character than there was Laurie. Like, Laurie, I feel like we've explored every single angle. Now, he was definitely the one who was sticking around for the Thorn trilogy, but it was really only the fourth film where that was anything substantial. The fifth film, he's kind of a weirdo. And then the sixth film, he was obviously close to passing away, unfortunately. So he wasn't a big presence in that movie. So yeah, I mean, you would have to be careful with it. The fans of the fans, of course, are going to get very testy. But I think you could recast that role and have Loomis yet again be that guy where he's never given up. Like, everybody else in the world, all the law enforcement, everybody's like, he's gone, dude. Like, I don't know what you're chasing, and he's been waiting. And Loomis is the one who's sticking around in Haddonfield, or at least back in Haddonfield at this point, knowing that Michael's probably going to show his head again. I
like it. And there's probably a lot that you can explore with, like, his files, like Loomis's files. And because he would just show up a lot and shuffle around the town. So he was acting more like a detective, or maybe a gun for hire, rather than actually his profession. So maybe there's a good opportunity as we build into Halloween night. We're meeting these new teenagers, but we're also cutting back to Loomis actually kind of digging around his research and trying to like piece together something that's missing from the identity of Michael Myers, because he has been calling this guy evil incarnate since he was a child. And I'm actually very eager to explore like that connection. We don't need flashbacks to like interviews with him as a kid, but maybe there's tapes where he's doing the talking and Michael isn't, or something in the files that he can kind of relate to or relay that kind of identifies why he's so determined and so knowledgeable about pure evil in this kid who turned into an adult, who only then escaped and proved him right. Yeah. So I think there's a lot you could actually play with to bring the psychologist or the psychiatrist back into the Loomis character instead of the raving nutbag that he turned into.
Exactly. Yeah, like I could even see you getting reintroduced to the character with him, like being in a house or a hotel, wherever he is that he's staying, and like listening to tapes of him talking to Michael in the asylum. Like obviously Michael's not talking back, but having something that like reestablishes, oh, that's Loomis, and then giving a little extra context on some of the things that he tried to break through to Michael. Because all we ever knew is, like he said, like I spent 10 years trying to reach him and then another 10 trying to keep him locked up or whatever the timeline was. And so reestablishing him that way. And what I think would be really cool as a stylistic choice is to spend at least the first third of the movie, maybe even the first half if you're bold enough, only having Michael be this distorted image in the background, like a blurred image, almost like he's not even really there, but fans are like, ooh, like you have to like almost play like Where's Waldo? You know, having the teenagers go around and doing stuff and having him be behind the bush somewhere, just like in the first film, but not like an actual shot straight up on him. And when you finally reveal him, like you could have something where like he ate the dog in the first film. You could have the teenagers messing around inside of the Laurie Strode house or whatever, and then they find the dead dog again, like he's been eating animals, and have a shot that's recreated from my favorite shot in the original film where Laurie backs up against that closet and then Michael's face just slowly comes into view. Yes. Have it be like that the first time that he's actually revealed in full whenever he comes into attack mode, and then the rest of the movie is Michael trying to take out these people for
I love it.
Coming into this territory.
I think it's a great, bold, sophisticated, mature approach, and it's a bit different too. Mm-hmm. I really like it. In terms of Loomis, I actually could see that you reintroduce him in a session with a child.
Yeah. And
maybe the kid is kind of relaying his troubles, but Loomis is probably not even listening, which is kind of funny. There's a little quirkiness because he's now becoming so obsessed. Yeah. So, and maybe the kid's problems don't really seem as dramatic to Loomis as what his previous patient was like. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of dismissive, or maybe even telling him like, kids will be kids. You're like, go ahead and throw those rocks or whatever, you know? Uh-huh. And the kid leaves, and then he goes and opens the closet or reveals like his obsession that he's been studying. So it's a nice kind of reintroduction to him, reminding people like that was his profession. We just have never really seen him do it because they cut the entire childhood out of the original. Yeah. Besides the murder, but like they just cut away from that. So I don't know. I think it'd be a fun way to get back into him. And he's a bit of a goof. He's a bit of a character. Mm. So him actually just not listening to the kid when that's his core job just tickles me. The idea of it.
Or you could even have it like if he's in his office, you know, again, like trying to establish that he's trying to move on and continue to be a doctor, but it's just something is unfinished there that he can't get past, where this kid's pouring his heart out and his eyes just keep darting over at the calendar, and it shows that it's October 30th or something like that. That shows that it's still like that's the main thing in front of his head.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. Or we even go a little further where he keeps trying to finish the kid's sentence with horrific acts, like, and that's why you thought this? No, I didn't. He's like, oh, okay. You know, like, he's just trying to impose like his history onto this poor innocent kid, and the kid goes off, and like then you introduce his obsession. You introduce the date, which is actually really great. I love that idea. Mm-hmm. And then I think we go back to Haddonfield and we meet the newbies, the new recruits of our story. Mm-hmm. Are we saying we're going back to teenagers in a high school again?
Yeah, I would assume so. That would make most sense to me. You know, have a different set of characters. You know, you can have, you know, the sheriff be recast. You know, the one I forget the character's name. Sheriff Brackett. You could have Sheriff Brackett still be there. Something that gives more ties to the original as somebody who, you know, is going to bring some of that legacy in there. But I think for the most part, yeah, you have a whole different cast of characters, and seeing how this next year of, you know, seniors or whatever is preparing for Halloween night despite this tragedy, despite this, you know, legend now. And as I said, you can have a playful nature to that, where certain adults, especially the ones that were affected by the original, are taking it more seriously, upping the security around town, and everybody else being the skeptics of the time, like, oh, I'm like, that's, are you crazy? What's he just going to show back up? And the teenagers, even, you can even have people like dressing up as Michael Myers, like have a couple of people joking around, kind of like in the second film where you had the boyfriend character who was supposed to be the boyfriend of Laurie Strode get hit by the car, and there's just different variations of the Michael mask. You could even have an element like that where it's become kind of a joke to some people, and it's very soon not going to be much of a joke.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's where we go with. We probably have teenagers. I'm kind of pushing towards a party, but I don't want to go that direction. That feels like it's getting too tropey. Or we're kind of drifting into a different realm. So I'm trying to think who our characters could be. Like, we're imagining they're probably a year younger, who are now a year older. So maybe they're sophomores, or they're the new seniors in high school. They've only heard about the circumstance, because in the scheme of things, like, it was kind of in a couple of house radius that a lot of this happened. So a lot of people weren't directly affected. And that could be a lot of the characters we have. The sympathetic, empathetic character, and then people who were like, look, it wasn't us, like, whatever, you know. The parents who, they treat it kind of like purge night, and then the other people who don't, you know, I like that. So I'm thinking some of the parents of some of our leads, that can be the dichotomy. Like, some are like, you're not going out, like, absolutely not. Keeping the child at home, and the other is like, you're going out, but you're going out with your sister to supervise her, you know, that, or your brother to supervise them.
And
so we're kind of
really
setting
cool
it up.
angle where you have like the whoever ends up being the new main character has one of those parents that's like, ain't no way, you ain't going out tonight, and then the little sister, you know, because same deal, they're going off like, stay in the house, you know, carve pumpkins, whatever, watch the TV, but don't leave this house. And then the little sister or the little brother really wants to go trick-or-treating. So you have kind of that same, you know, protector angle that we had from Laurie Strode in the first film, and even kind of in the fourth film, but a little different, where they're like, okay, look, like, don't tell mom and dad, but I'll take you trick-or-treating. And then it becomes a night where the older sister, older brother's trying to protect the younger sibling.
I really like that. That makes total sense. Maybe even add a little bit more to it, where there's a planned Halloween party that's going to happen, but the parents get whiff of it, the sheriff hears about it, so they shut it down. And like that, because of that planned party, like, there's a ton of parents just ground like everybody. And so you're actually pushing towards, oh, they're doing the party, and it's like, actually no, like, because a reasonable person would be like, you're not having a party a year after that, like, where everyone's together in a cautionary circumstance. So you could have them maybe planning it, or like, it begins with them talking about, are you going to go? Yeah, I was thinking of going. And then it just gets squealed on and smashed. And then they're all put towards a curfew of some kind. And that's how we kind of kick it off.
You could even have a sequence maybe where a couple of the more bold teenagers, like the ones that are going to be doing like the ganja and everything like that was really popular at the time, I guess still is, and have it where the tombstone, was it Judith Myers was his sister, I'm pretty sure. You'd have the tombstone that he, you know, exhumed in the first film back where it's supposed to be, and they make a little bonfire in like 2 or 3 characters, a little bonfire in the cemetery that night to kind of do their own version of like their party that they got busted up, and have Michael show up at the grave and get a little scene where he kills 2 or 3 people at once.
I love that. That's an amazing scene. And we're always going to be looking for new scenarios and unique moments, and what a great setting for it, because that is definitely an irrational decision for them to do, and it really gives motivation to Michael Myers to like set him off, you know. Like, who knows, maybe he was coming back to say sorry, but then they're messing with the grave of Judith Myers, and he flips out. Goes back with some pumpkins. He's like, sorry, I was a bit cranky. My bad. I like this a lot. So I imagine those are the kids who were going to have the party. It got smashed, so they're turned around going like, fuck it, like, we're going to do something else. Like, yeah, what is it? But like, no one's involved. Again, we're trying to distance ourselves from a lot of teen horror, but also teen party tropes. And it's like, once it's done, like, no one's allowed to go. So these kids decide, like, they'll take it out on the person who canceled their party, which is Michael Myers. Yep. He's not around, so let's go to the grave, you know? Mm-hmm. So I really like that. So we're kind of setting lots of seeds. And this is what happens in these sessions. You jump back and forth. We'll probably crack the end way before we get there. But it's important to kind of establish a bit of the scenarios and segments for us instead of just flying blind going forward.
Yep.
So yeah. Oh, it's really taken shape. I like the idea. So we are cutting in the first act. We're cutting back and forth from, well, we begin with that cold open. Michael's gone. Cut to a year later. Loomis with the child that he's listening to, but not listening to. He's nervous, anxious. It's a year coming. We see his obsession. We cut to the new people. They're talking about the party that will be canceled, but they're still discussing it at the time. They go home. They've got their siblings who really want to go trick-or-treating. Parents are cautious about that. Eventually, the party is discovered and basically forced to be canceled. The teenagers are then punished because they were planning on going, and so they're all shut in at home on Halloween night, which kind of brings us, brings us to kind of like maybe the inciting incident, or even you want to get to the first act. Like, when do we actually see Michael kind of for the first time? I actually want to keep your idea where it's like barely noticeable, but really early on, maybe 10 pages in or 20 pages in, you're going to want to see some kind of concept that he's coming back, but curious driven.
I would think that the way you would keep his presence to where you don't feel frustrated or impatient is to kind of really lean into what I was hoping for, which is just to kind of keep him like that supernatural thing where it's like, was he there or wasn't he? And you could even have Loomis's trauma be a part of that, where he feels like he sees him out the window, like that classic shot that they've even recreated a couple of times where he's standing across the street. You could have moments like that where it's like, was it him or is it just his mind playing tricks on him? Having the kids go through the neighborhood and, you know, seeing something in the background that's like an Easter egg moment or like a Where's Waldo moment. Have a few of those throughout, you know, the first 30 minutes or so, and eventually get to the point where, like, you know, the Halloween night is supposed to be kind of on lockdown by some parents. Others don't care as much. You got the bonfire thing going on. You have a couple of teenagers that are just messing around inside of the Strode house. And I think the Strode house is where you first show him with that shadow. And after that, it's a little bit more like once he makes those first couple of kills, then it's going back and forth between our main character at the house with the brother or the sister. And then you cut to Michael just continuing to kind of roam through the streets now. And eventually that would lead to the graveyard where he's, you know, somebody's tipped him off or whatever in the Strode house by coming in. Just the same way that Laurie Strode, like, it was kind of an unspoken thing, her knocking on the door and trying to push the thing on, and he's, you know, looking at her. Right. That was kind of what got him moving that day. And so something along those lines. And you bring Loomis in where he's just kind of there. Like, I don't know, I don't remember exactly how far away he traveled in the first film, like how far away the asylum that he worked in was from Haddonfield, but have it where something's just like gnawing at him, where he's going to be in the town doing something. You can have a scene where he reunites with Sheriff Brackett. Brackett is very much jaded and hardened at the death of his daughter, and so he doesn't even like seeing Loomis because it's a reminder. They're not very friendly with each other. And, you know, Loomis is kind of trying the same shit where it's just like, you know, he's coming back to this town, Sheriff. And he's like, dude, shut up. Have something like that where revisiting some of those elements of the first film, but in a new context. And, you know, I don't have too many other ideas off the top of my head about like setting up kill scenes. You would obviously want this to be a higher body count than the original. That's just the standards of today. And eventually, like you said, like, forgive me for jumping too far forward, but I just thought of this idea.
Keep cooking.
As far as the ending of the movie, have a situation where Sheriff Brackett finally, like, obviously at some point Loomis is going to find a dead body, or there's going to be, you know, dead bodies are going to be found, and everybody's like, oh my God, is it him? Loomis knows it's Michael. Everybody else is a little skeptical, and some people do think it's Michael. You end up in a situation where Sheriff Brackett gets past, all of his hardened sense, and you get a situation in a house where Michael's going after the final girl and the brother, gets him cornered, and Sheriff Brackett comes to the rescue, and have a situation where Michael's fighting with Sheriff Brackett. Loomis comes in with his little 6-shooter, and have a situation similar to Halloween Kills, where Michael's kind of got the knife to somebody's neck, and it's Sheriff Brackett. And at that point, Brackett's like, do it. Like, take us both out. And Loomis reluctantly fires, which kills Brackett for sure, while also killing Michael behind him, seemingly. And you have a situation where the night is wrapped up yet again, and Michael's wheeled in, as well as Sheriff Brackett, wheeled off into the morgue. And then you have Michael that's wheeled off the same way, where he's put into the ambulance or whatever, paddy wagon, whatever they used to call it back in the day, and have another type of ending where Loomis is there whenever they're getting ready to pull the body out, and they open up the back and it's empty. And then you have the breathing and the Halloween theme, and starting to show some other things. So it leans even more into the supernatural, where it's like, how the hell did he get out of this ambulance? And it's like, you don't need to know.
I love it. What a run you just went on. That was great.
Yeah, sorry. When my brain gets going, I'm like, Harry, just
That's
keep going,
the best. I love it. That's what we're here for. That's really good. When you were talking, because, Sheriff Brackett's daughter was killed in the first one, right? It wasn't the second one. So it's the first one.
Yeah, Annie, I believe.
Yeah, so I can imagine Loomis in the first act is calling him constantly, like, what's going on, looking for updates, just frustrating him. And he gets one nugget of an idea. Like, there was a sighting of somebody, and this could actually be what we've set up already, which is technically they were actually right. Somebody did see something, and that was correct. But there's some jokers running around impersonating him. So, like, we've got it, hang up. No, Loomis, do not come to Haddonfield. And, like, you leave the scene there. He's coming to Haddonfield. So you've already established the friction between these two. And I think it's a really nice thorough line between them, is them in this night actually understanding each other and uniting together. But I actually love your concept of the ending where he has to shoot through Sheriff Brackett to kill Michael. Makes sense. Maybe we actually go back to the graveyard, and it's around Judith Meyer's grave, but also Annie's grave as well. So it's actually happening in a graveyard, which I think is a new environment for Michael, but there's weight behind it because that's where Michael's sister is. That's where the sheriff's daughter is buried too. So I think having it set, like having the climax in that place feels quite fresh. You could still have a lot of it like pre-climax in the Strode house. That makes sense, but there's something about that graveyard setting which he should go to first for the kids who are messing with the grave. But I think you're actually setting that location up for the eventual showdown among the tombstones, which I think is actually could be quite memorable and definitely unique for a franchise that has explored many different locations for these kind of final showdowns.
You could have a shot where, like we said, there's people trying to like have like a little Halloween bonfire or whatever at this graveyard. And so they've got like jack-o'-lanterns and everything set around. So I'm thinking of a shot where Loomis, fires through Sheriff Brackett. He obviously falls over. Michael takes a few more hits, just like he did in the first film, where he's, getting hit and walks backwards and then eventually falls backwards. And you have a shot that's like overhead of him, and then it starts to actually tilt upwards, and it shows him laying somewhat in the place of the Judith Myers tombstone with jack-o'-lanterns all around it, and then just kind of slowly pull out.
Love it. Like, that's amazing. That should absolutely be it. I even got the little Judith Meyer tombstone right there. Yeah, dude, that's an amazing ending in general, like character-wise, but I really like the location, and that end shot is absolutely iconic. So yeah, great. And again, perfectly normal that we jump to the end, because usually I prefer if we had figured that out early, because then we have a destination that we're trying to get to, instead of just scrambling about in the mid scene, going in the mid act. It's like, I don't know, midpoint. What should we do now? So we have a destination to get to. We kind of bridged these. We kind of developed a character arc with Loomis and Brackett, and then we just need to have a little bit more of who our teenagers are. I think we should probably name the lead female teenager who has the son, or has the brother, I imagine. So you're kind of playing on Judith and Michael in that regard, if you have it that way. Also, you're avoiding Halloween 4 with the stepsister and the stepsister's going out trick-or-treating. Like,
Rachel
we're too close
Jamie.
to that. Yeah, if you're too close to that. So I think a female teenager as the lead, and a little brother, I think, could actually be working well. But let's give her a name just so we have something to grip onto and not constantly refer to her as teenager.
First name that pops into my head, just because it's my youngest daughter, is Riley. I
Riley.
don't know if that's much of a popular name in the 70s, but that's just where my brain went.
Love it. So it's Riley. And and Billy. I don't care. Like, for me, I don't really mind names. Even when I write screenplays, I don't want to spend like too much time with it. I can go back, copy find and just replace it. So we'll go with Riley and Billy, and then we go from there. So yeah,
Little
I think
homage to Billy Loomis.
that's it. Yeah, for sure. So I think we can kind of go back to the near the end of the first act, where we've established that they're locked in the house and Loomis is coming to town. He's probably, at this point, he's already landed, and he's approaching Sheriff, who does not want to have anything to do with him. Brackett is taking it seriously. He's already canceled. He's already identified a party, which he knew something was going to happen, and he sniffed it out. Has no time for Loomis. He gets it. He's like, I agree, and we're taking our precautions, because I love practical, realistic characters. Because after a while, it gets absurd when people are like, you're talking poppycock. This will never happen again. It's like, no, he's a professional, and he's got real motivation to ensure that what happened to him doesn't happen to other members of his community. So you're kind of establishing their rapport. But then we go back to Riley and Billy, and you probably have that scene. We're going to want to get the parents out, right?
Yeah.
Or, like, it's difficult if the parents are there, because, as you were saying, she does go, we'll go out a little bit. Maybe just around our block. You know, like, we'll just do a quick around our block and then come back, just to give you a little bit. So we'll want to get the parents out. But where are the parents going? I think
it's a classic do as I say, not as I do scenario. We're going to a party. You stay home.
Yeah. Look, Michael wasn't going after us, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I think it fits the time. Like, look, we're a lot more crazy and stringent and aware nowadays, but like back in the day, it was like, you know, bye mom, I'll be back when the lights are out. You know what I mean? It was just not that way at all. So it doesn't push it at all to me to have a parent be like, I don't want you out there, but we're going to go have fun, and I trust you to not do it foolishly.
And there actually could be a funny scenario. Maybe it's not a montage, but there's a few different parents who are doing that. Mm-hmm. So they're going, no, you're staying in. It's a strict curfew. And they're like, but we're all going out. So a lot of the parents actually just go hang out together. It's like, we're not missing our annual party because of you. You stay in and everything is fine, you know? I think there's something kind of cute about that. Again, sign of the times, but exactly. It's a memorable moment if there's a very exaggerated stance on, like, this is final, it's not safe, we will see you at midnight. It's like, wait, what? Like, you're still going out? And it's like, the curfew's for children and teenagers. It's not for adults. We'll be fine. You'll be fine as long as you listen to us. Yeah, I love that.
I think it's totally plausible. Us parents like to bend those rules a lot, where it's just like, oh, you think that's unfair? Well, get a job.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So then we've got Riley and Billy at home alone. I like the idea of just carving pumpkins, watching some shit on the TV. Like, do one of those homages to Texas Chainsaw or something. I don't know. Like, you know, I don't know what could be on TV, but
show something on the TV the kid should not be watching, but that kind of establishes that Riley's like the cool sister. Like, don't tell mom you can watch this.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. She's probably on the phone too, chatting to her friends. And maybe they're all agreeing, like, they're in the neighborhood too, and it's like, I know. It's like, but she's cool, so she cares about her brother. She's like, maybe we could do one little run around the block and we do it together. So they kind of organize a little group scenario. So then you kind of jump back and forth to different houses, meet different siblings. We don't have to get into specifics there because we're not going to get too deep. But I think what you're getting out of that then is you're building this little group together that'll probably they'll probably walk by the Strode house, I imagine, as a nice big group. And that might be where we start encountering, or that's where I think we're going to want to see Michael Myers emerge somewhere with this group together.
Yeah, and you could establish that like two of this friend group, a guy and a girl, are like the horny couple. And so like they're the ones that like want to go break into the Strode house or whatever. And the fact that they don't come back, like nobody really is like, what's going on? They're like, oh, they're probably in there doing it, or you know, something along those lines to make them dismiss the fact that Michael is in there dismembering them. And they could, you know, their group gets a little smaller as they continue on, where they're looking at the time, like, we only got like so much longer before my parents are home. Like, we got to keep going.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times in these films, people write children like the same character when children's personalities are wildly different. So you get this group together. Billy's probably conscientious as well. It's like, yeah, look, you promised around the block, that's it. The group get together, and then there's this one pain in the ass brat of a kid who just pushes boundaries. And he's the one who just storms off, and they all have to go chasing after him, which gets them further away from their intended plan because they can't leave this kid alone. But the kid has, he's taken an inch and he thinks he's a ruler, and he just goes for it. And at least that practically gets them away from the 1 block radius where they were like, we'll just do one. But as a parent, I know these kids, like, they are around. It's like, oh my gosh, just don't hang out with that person. Like, oh, he will break every single rule. So that person can initiate this, the movement towards the Strode house. He's not going there intentionally, but he's pushing the boundaries of how much candy, how many doors can I get before they shut us down. And also, while maybe that couple go in there, he pushes on ahead, which separates them. So they're not all waiting for this couple, but they have to go because the kid ran off, you know? They're like, go find him. And maybe he's not lost, but they could see him around the corner on a foggy night. If we made it foggy on Halloween, that could also be quite unique too. So it plays in on what you're talking about shrouding Michael, but it gives this other element where like the visibility on the street is actually quite low. So what are those shadows that you see in the distance? And sometimes it could be him.
I even thought of like what could be a funny kill. Funny in the sense of like a comedic setup, but also establishing like how much more brutal Michael is. Which again, they went along this way in the trilogy to a certain extent, this newest trilogy, but like have a scene where, you know, Michael's killed somebody inside of a house, and a trick-or-treater walks up because the porch light's on, and they're knocking on the door impatiently, like one of these more aggressive kids, the bratty kids, and just starts pounding on the door, and then you just have a shot where the door opens, and it's Michael, and the kid looks up, and then he just grabs him and pulls him inside. So it doesn't actually like physically show him kill the kid, but it's like, oh yeah, Michael just killed that kid.
That's very good. I can even see how you show that, like dead on the door, and then he's just pulled into the darkness. Yep. Yeah. And if you establish that child in that kind of brattiness, there is this perverse humor that I think audiences it's like, this is so wrong, but like if there was anybody who was literally asking for it, he was banging on that door when he shouldn't have. Yeah. That's a fun kill, man. You got a couple of good ones already. You've got the graveyard, you got the kid. Yeah. I'm liking this. So then we go back to Loomis. He's with Sheriff Brackett, and I imagine Brackett probably has people on patrol, and then is he doing a patrol too, or has he decided he'll be staying back at the headquarters?
Well, an idea that came to my mind when you were talking about, or we were all talking about, like how to get the parents out of the house. I think what could be cool too is like you have some parents that are going to their own party, and you have some parents that are going to a memorial for the killings of the last year, and Sheriff Brackett would obviously be the one heading that since his daughter was one of the victims. So I think you could also have that as a place to kind of establish where some of the adults are located at like the town hall or something like that.
That's
And
brilliant.
Loomis is there trying to get them to be like, you're going to be having a memorial next year if you don't take this seriously. And, then at some point, one of the killings that Michael has done is going to get seen, and that's what's going to start the hysteria.
I really like that. And yeah, Loomis with zero chill at this event where he's just pestering them. He's like, would you shut up? It's like, you're ringing the dinner bell. Like, what? Like, you've left all your children alone and you've all congregated here. Like, he's taking his pick of the litter and it's like, just would you be quiet? I love that. I just see him as a pest, and it amuses me so much because he's got a real vantage point. But the other people are like, this is not the time or place. He's like, this is the time. He will strike again tonight. Makes perfect sense.
Yep, exactly. I agree.
Great. I kind of feel like something should happen there. I know that's very Halloween 6 at the bonfire and the Howard Stern copycat getting killed at the big event. But when you have a scene like that, it feels like something should have happened, or a reveal of a body around that area. Maybe Michael killed somebody previously and stuffed them, and then they discover that body at the memorial. So I'm not really even saying he should be at the memorial, because we do want to avoid the unrealistic time travel that the distance travel that characters like this can do, where they're like, why'd you go there? And then he's already back here. So maybe that's like really early on. He catches somebody who's setting up the memorial. They're like one of the planners or organizers. They get got very early, and then they're revealed then in front of Brackett and Loomis. And Loomis is like, I told you, zero chill. He's like, there it is. I told you. He's kind of, in this weird way, a little excited. He's like, and Brackett's like, don't enjoy it too much.
Well, maybe you could have something where they're going to reveal some kind of a memorial, whether it's like a statue or a plaque or like something that's covered in the middle of this area. And, you have a scene that precedes that where it's like they've now reached their boiling point, or Brackett and Loomis have reached their boiling point, where Loomis is adamant about this and Brackett just loses his shit on him in front of everybody, like maybe even holding the microphone about like, you're opening up the wounds of this town or whatever. And then he just like totally lays waste to him. And you have this quiet moment where the town is totally on board with that. And then they reveal the memorial and there's like a dismembered body on it or something along those lines, where like you kind of, again, brutal, but you kind of have that little bit of a comedic irony in there of like, bitch, I told you,
And you've got Brackett here, Loomis here, and right between them, right behind them is the reveal. So they both turn their heads, you rack focus, and they're like, oh shit. All right, mount up. Like we gotta go. And maybe they're like, send some people to there's a party happening with adults. Go shut that down, send them home. Yeah, but he may not be after them. Send them home for their kids' sake, It's like, it's not like they need to be back with their kids. I told you that party that we should have canceled the adult party too. So you're also even splitting up some cops going like, just go get the parents. You could technically have some of them coming back home and getting in the mix too. But I think in terms of what we're talking about, that feels like a real midpoint shift where, okay, now it's ratchet. Now all the chips are out there, and now you can go directly to Michael, who's probably going to that grave to stomp the bonfire at his sister's site, and then you're cutting back and forth. You've got the kids who are now scattered on the street looking for each other, looking for the lost kid. That kid disappeared. He ran around the corner, disappeared.
Yep.
And now they don't know where he is. And it's like, yeah, but we got to go home. But we all came out, and now one of the kids is missing. So we actually have to find him, which actually is a really good reason to keep him on the street for this entire time.
Yeah, and you could even have it where like that's the little brother's best friend, and he's like the rowdy, more like more bold one or something like that. And the Riley is babysitting her brother as well as his friend who's staying the night. And so that's kind of an added thing of like, we can't go home without him because then this whole thing is blown up. Like they're going to know that we were out.
That makes complete sense because now she's a babysitter too.
Yes.
So yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh man, there's so much energy that is about to happen right now because we've basically scattered our characters around and Michael's pinballing around each of them. So then you just have some nice scenarios where the adult teenagers scouring the streets, going door to door, just checking to see, like, did a kid come around here? People are not answering the door. They're like, get the hell out of here. Like, you know, I do not have pumpkins out. I do not have lights up. Like, go away. And it's like, we're looking for our brother. You know, like, you shouldn't be out here too. So, and that's when Michael can be striking a couple of them as well.
Yeah, and I'm slightly ignorant to the technology of the time, but if there was a way where after the body is discovered at this memorial, like the police can put out something on the radio or something like curfew's in effect now, shut off all your lights, lock all your doors, and you can have this great like open shot, like an aerial shot of Haddonfield with all the porch lights, and they're just like slowly going out. And so now the teenagers that are that we're following, they're out in darkness, basically. Like the town has been locked down. They don't understand why. It's just like, well, this Halloween sucks. You know what I mean? Or people are closing up early, and have something like that where they can get the panic out in a way that kind of logically would make sense for why the streets would be a little emptier in that back half of the film.
It's great. And I can even hear that music from the 2018 soundtrack like really ramping up at that point. They hit the middle of the road. It's desolate. It actually looks like the cold open with the breathing where the streets are completely empty at 3 a.m. But now they're out there, and you could probably even have the exact shot, but now they're standing where in that exact space in the middle of the street going like, we've got to go home, but we've got to find this brat kid. And it's like, how do we do it? Do we split up? That's madness. Yeah, but do we?
And you can have them split up depending on how many other people are in this little group, and that just sets up more kills where, Riley and Billy go one way, and, Judy and Sam go the other way or whatever. And then they end up getting cornered by Michael in a park or something like that. Yeah.
Makes sense. And they might even see, because again, if we're saying it's foggy, they might even see some kind of figure, a smallish figure that they think is like around the corner. So they go into an alleyway or, into the backyard of somewhere, 'Cause I haven't really seen that either. Like they think somebody might be going into the backyard of somebody's house. And like, that's where Mike can catch them because they're chasing the ghost of this kid. And they're like, I think he went this way. Did you see that? Like, I'm not sure. But it actually could have been Michael in the fog. And it's like, they don't know that because they still aren't aware that Michael has hit, which is the nice thing about the time frame is you don't have mobile phones, wrecking or drama. Like, there's no APB when they're out in the street.
Exactly. So somehow we have to figure out some way to get Riley and Billy to the party in the graveyard. So I don't know if there's some way to establish that like the missing kid's brother or whatever was going to be at the party, and that's why he dropped him off to be babysat by Riley because he's going to go off and do his partying and his drinking and everything like that. So maybe that's their last ditch effort of like, maybe he went to go find his brother. Let's go check the graveyard before we go home. And that gets them into the setting for the third act. Yeah, it's true. So before we get there, do you think we should get them into the Strode house as well? I don't know. I think that for me, just having those first initial couple of kills be inside of the Strode house or the Myers house, either one would probably be enough. Yeah. I mean, you can go back to it and have that be where they discover the first bodies, and that's what Or they discover the Loomis eventually gets there, maybe, and discovers even more bodies after the panic is set in. You could find a way to get back to it. I don't know if they necessarily have to get back. At least for me, I can be convinced, but
I could see somebody driving by Riley's crew and informing her of what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, so they're not ignorant. The others can just be ignorant and searching, and that's why they get caught so easily. Where somebody drives by Riley, informs what's happening, and she's like, well, like, we can't go back. Would the missing kid be in that house? You know?
Yeah.
So maybe you have that moment where she actually does, like, brave face it and go in there, find the other couple, run out the door. So you've kind of got that little bit of her entering that house, but it isn't much. But it's that kind of logical sense of, where is this kid? Could he have been brought? Like, could they have brought him into the house? And you kind of get that moment. But it makes sense. We have to figure out how to get them then to, or maybe it is like she goes in there and she's actually attacked by Michael, and we actually have a full scene where she escapes and she's running with Billy.
maybe the graveyard is like that's the fastest way to get back to their house. Is you have to go to the graveyard, and they end up coming across the party, and they're like, "Hey, he's chasing us, move!" And they're like, "Whatever, like shut up, quit trying to mess up our high." And then Michael shows up, and then you get your massacre scene where he's taken out 3 or 4 different party goers, and Riley and Billy. Maybe eventually they're finding a way that they can't get out of the graveyard is the tough part. Like, while he's killing everybody else, why aren't they just run? But I think that could be a way to maybe get them there.
I love it. I was thinking the same way. Same thing is the quickest way to get back from their detour, because they're only supposed to go around the block. Brat Kid gets them to walk further. They could already be walking past the graveyard early on, see the bonfire. What's happening over there? And it's like, we don't want to know. We're just go trick or treat and just shut up. So you've established the location early on that they walk past it, and they're like, we're getting very far off course. Someone's like, well, we can cut through the graveyard to get back home, and she's like, I'm not going in there tonight. And like, eventually we know that that's where they'll have to drive into. I think it makes so much more logical sense that they're trying to get through it rather than get to it. And that gets them there where they can encounter. And then we need to get Loomis and Brackett in the mix as well. So basically, when we're driving Riley and Billy to the graveyard, we're getting Michael there as well. And then we're getting Loomis and Brackett. So it's kind of, they're all descending on this one location. Maybe that's where somebody can say, like, oh, there's some kids outside. I saw them run in there. Or, now that I think of it, maybe we're holding off that graveyard killing until the end. So we've seen that people are there, but Michael doesn't appear until the very end. So he starts getting vengeance on them for desecrating his sister's grave. But that's kind of where we've kind of landed all our characters. So Loomis and Brackett find out that that's where the kids went. There's already teenagers there partying. That has been an alarm bell or like an invitation for Michael. And that's kind of where we kind of propel ourselves.
And depending on how dark and empty the town is, I mean, it could be almost like a beacon where there's fire, there's music and all that kind of stuff, like right there in the middle of the graveyard. And that's just easily what draws people like Loomis and Brackett. Like, what's going on over there?
Yeah, that's nice. I think there's actually a quite nice scene there. I think all we're missing then is, like, does Brackett and Loomis ever come across Michael up until the ending, or are they just constantly missing him or chasing him? I feel like I'd like to get them together at least once, and he slips away. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe at some point there, after they know that Michael's in the town, they come to a point where you get something where they see him and they go into the house after him, but he's gone. And like, just enough to let them know it's for sure Michael. Like, we have the dead body. We're pretty sure we know, who it is. At least Loomis knows. Brackett might still be a little bit skeptical, but at least he knows there's something going on here. And it could be as simple as him, it could be as simple as one of those shots where he's behind the hedges. It could be, him looking out the window, something like that. Does it have to be an actual full-on confrontation? I wouldn't think so, but something to like let them somewhat come into contact with him, and then he slips away.
I'm kind of going back to what you said about there's copycats that night. They're dressed up as Michael Myers. Maybe we have a scene where Michael kills one of them, but then we have Brackett find that body, and then Loomis sees another copycat, and he's like, let's follow him. And so they're actually like, Loomis's twisted mind, he's like, we're going to use this guy as bait, so don't tell him to get off the street, because this guy, and that actually happens where Michael shows up, kills this copycat, and then something happens, something unexpected that diverts their attention, and he slips away. But there's something amusing. Again, I don't know why I keep laughing about Loomis's tactics. I think because he has a history, like screaming at Jamie, and like even in the first one, doesn't he like hide behind a bush and like scare kids away? Like,
Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
Yeah. So I think that could be a fun scenario too, where he's like, I can't believe we're using this kid as bait, and it's like, look, he's killed one of them. We can't bring him back, but maybe this will draw him out, and we'll be ready, and they're not ready. And so at least you have this moment where they're near each other, or he starts firing at Michael. Brackett tackles Loomis because why are you shooting? Like, stop shooting, which then sets up the ending where he's like, shoot. Like, because you're not a police officer.
Yeah, you could have something like that, or even like, again, you could have Brackett still be super skeptical, like just walled off. Like, I don't want to accept the fact that this guy could be back and I have to deal with it. And Loomis obviously is not. So you could even have a scene where Loomis is confronting Michael, like he has Michael cornered, but Brackett's assumption is like that could just be anybody in a Halloween mask. So he stops him from taking the shot. And it ends up actually being Michael. Like, it just kind of, he gets away, walks away, whatever he does. Like, a way to establish where, like, we as the audience know Loomis was right in that moment, even though he looks like 4 or 5 other people walking around. And Brackett was just like, are you nuts? Like, you see how many of these people walking around there are? How do you know it's him? But it was. And then, like you said, that establishes that kind of, that reverse in the end where he's like, fire! Shoot!
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, it makes total sense. I think all we're kind of missing, because I wouldn't even change, even exploring more of the story, I wouldn't even change any of your ending. I think it all makes sense. I just kind of want to revisit that kind of moment where they all descend on the graveyard, and I think that'll kind of wrap us all up at that point. Mm-hmm. So we've got Riley and Billy escaping a near-death experience with Michael. So they're on the run. He attacked, then he disappears. They're running. They go like the quickest way to get home, and they through the graveyard, and they see the bonfire, and maybe somebody could help. And so like that drives them in there. Mm-hmm. You've got Michael who sees the bonfire, and you got Loomis and Brackett. And then I guess we can explore a little bit of what that scene looks like. Because again, as you say, why don't they run away? What could be keeping them there? That's very curious, because I like the idea that he kills like it's a extended scene where he's catching all these people, but why wouldn't they leave? Because we want that final confrontation.
You have to have somebody at the party that means a lot to Riley, or Riley feels safe with. And so I don't know if that'd be another friend or somebody along those lines. And so when they actually get to the bonfire and they're surrounded by people, there's something about not being alone that gives them enough comfort where they don't want to keep running. They don't want to keep going back out into the fire, back into the darkness towards the house. And so they stay there for a bit, and she's hysterical, the kid's hysterical, and they're not taking it serious because they're all inebriated. And you have maybe like one guy step away from the party to go take a piss or something, and then Michael does his thing, which shows that he's there, but he's still kind of hidden. Nobody knows that he's there yet. Right. And so have a scene where there's only like 2 other people there hanging out, maybe 3 total before Riley and Billy get there. And as soon as Michael lets himself be known, either by throwing a severed head or whatever he wants to do to let the party know that he's there and start attacking the other two. That's when you have Brackett, like she screams, they're all getting attacked. She doesn't necessarily, like, she's frozen for a second because whoever's getting killed means a lot to her, whether it's her boyfriend or somebody. And then right in that moment is when Brackett and Loomis show up behind them. And you have that scene where, Brackett now finally knows, and he's face to face with his daughter's killer, overcome with rage, and goes at him. And then it sets up the scenario where Michael's got him when Loomis is, Michael, put him down, whatever he's going to say. And that sets up the end. Great.
Love all of that. We could just even have it simply at that moment, Billy slips away from Riley and kind of disappears in the graveyard. So she actually can't run away. And Michael is now killing people and kind of stalking around the graveyard. So it's vicious. It's a bit more energetic, but there has that kind of stalking quality. And she legitimately can't find her brother. And I think that alone just keeps her there. And everyone can understand that. And I understand the kid, too. Why is the kid going to sit there?
Starts, he hides somewhere. He runs and hides, and now she's trying to find him. He's
behind a gravestone in the dark with a madman on the loose. And she's walking around or skulking around trying to find him and not get the attention of Michael. And I think that's amazing. You can have that moment build until Michael probably catches Billy. And then you have the Loomis and Brackett show up at that moment. So you've got all your party right there. And I think that really justifies why they stayed as well. You have a lot of fun in the nasty sense with the other victims at that time where they're kind of being plucked down behind gravestones. And that's kind of frightening as well.
Yeah, like a little chase scene, like a little hide and tension scene. And you could have it where Michael finds Billy, which makes Riley reveal herself, screaming at him or whatever. And you can even, not that it takes a lot to, pick up a little kid, but you could have a scene where Michael literally has Billy by the throat or something like that, and he's lifting him up, and she's screaming, and right before he's about to stab him, he gets shot in the arm.
Right.
And that's where you get revealed that Loomis or Loomis and Brackett are there.
I love it. Yeah. Makes total sense. And then you have that final confrontation, that showdown. Loomis just gung-ho runs straight for him. You can even have maybe a moment where Brackett's we're calling it in. No sudden moves. Michael! He goes straight at him. Sheriff has to break it up then. He gets entangled. You have your moment, as you've described, where Brackett is now going, this is the chance. This is our moment. Take the shot. I can't just take it anyway. Shoots through Brackett, killing him, seemingly killing Michael Myers as well. And I love that moment too, where he spills out onto his sister's grave. That's beautiful. Got I'm now just literally recounting your ending. So then you have the morgue, get the body bag show up, pop them into the truck. When they get to their destination, it's empty. And you end it with Loomis just freaking out, no. Maybe he's protesting while they're putting him in, going can we just, he's kind of a bit fussy with them. And they're we've got it. We've checked the pulse, because again, that's an ongoing thing is, does he lose his pulse in these moments, in all the other films? I like the idea that he would, because then they're you would check on the scene. So why would you get that far if he's still, if he has vital signs?
Yeah.
But then it ends.
I like the idea of just pushing it just that little edge further into the supernatural without going full on Cult of Thorn and all that kind of stuff, where it's that first one, he was very much man and a piece of nature. And I think there's some way to kind of ratchet that up just a little bit.
Love it. Yeah, I think that's it. Then you end it. You end it with Loomis screaming again, and you hit that music, just grind it out. The credits come, and you've created the new sequel to the original Halloween. All right. Cody, what do you think of that?
I'd watch it today.
I really enjoyed that. That was really fun.
Yeah, it was
it's
good.
great. it feels simple, like the original. It feels more in keeping with it too. We do not have the motivation or the family ties or the muddle like where it gets to in the future.
Yeah.
It feels realistic too that he comes back that year, and you could also establish kind of the X-Men First Class scenario where they jump a decade. Like if you wanted to come back for a third one, then just the next Halloween, 1980, exactly. And you just kind of keep going each year. You try to release it annually, and each year it keeps going forward, and the psychopath just keeps showing up. So yeah, I really like that. It makes crystal clear sense to me.
Oh yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's a wrap on the new installment of the Halloween franchise. Cody, thank you so much for joining the session.
Thank you.
That was a riveting experience to figure out that next installment.
It was.
And for everybody else, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time for another one of these sessions. All right, my name is Chris Brennan. Until next time, take care.
Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please go support Chris Brennan over at his podcast and YouTube channel called Storybreakers, which you can click the link right now on screen. And you can even check out the other Halloween-centric episodes and see what other creators came up with and what directions they took for their Halloween sequel. So please like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything that I have in store on this channel in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.